Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on the road to rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, pay it forward and uplift others who are struggling through dark times. A quick reminder that you can hear this show anywhere you get your podcasts. If you happen to listen on Apple Podcasts, please feel free to rate us and leave us a review. Otherwise, feel free to give us some feedback at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com. We'll give you a shout out in a future episode. Let me tell you, when it comes to life, right, one thing we can all count on is running into adversity. Well, with my special guest, adversity seems to have a passenger seat throughout his journey. He's a trauma surgeon, a best-selling author, radio show co-host, and a motivational speaker. From being put up for adoption at birth to battling a reading disorder that went undiagnosed until he was 55 years old, from suffering a twisted intestine and skull fracture to dealing with his adopted mother's alcoholism, he is proof positive that adversity and struggles can reveal miracles, as he's captured and chronicled in his book, Saved. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Craig Thayer to the show. Dr. Thayer, welcome. It's so great to have you here.
It's an absolute honor, Aubrey. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. We're pleased to have you here. So, Doctor, I have to ask, um, when we're young, early on, we don't know what we don't know, right? We're children. We're
Right.
an infant. We're a toddler. We don't know we're being put up for adoption. Um, can you kind of maybe from as early as you can remember, just kind of unpack a little bit, um, being told or having it revealed to you that you were adopted, and then what kind of transpired after that when it came to any interest or attempt to track your biological parents?
Yeah, that's a great question. My parents were really smart. They told me when I was probably 5, 6 years old, along
Hmm.
with my sister,
Hmm.
who was also adopted, and basically said that, we want you to know, doesn't mean we care about you any less.
Hmm.
And you're our kids. We're raising you. So, and we have no qualms if you want to find your natural family.
Right.
So, and as a guy growing up, I mean, one of the mandates of the adoption was that I be raised Catholic.
Okay.
And because my natural mother was Catholic and she was 6 months starting to show in the 60s and
Hmm.
would have been ostracized at church.
Yeah.
So she moved to California and had me for 10 days,
Hmm.
held me that long, had me baptized,
Hmm.
and then gave me up for adoption. Back then, they didn't have foster homes, so it was an orphanage.
I see.
And 9 months later, I was adopted by my great parents.
Hmm.
And I always had a loyalty to them. And my mom, my freshman year in college, and my dad died between my junior and senior year.
I
So
see.
I I was curious. My wife, Steph, was much more curious. She wondered where I got my eyes from because they're
Hmm.
Asian-like. And I think
Hmm.
when I was in high
Hmm.
school, even the Asian club invited me to be in the club. So, um, and I've done I kind of declined doing heritage genetic testing, but my kids did, and it turns out one of my 15-year-old son is like 3 point something percent Eastern uh, Asian, which is like Israel, old country. And
Yes.
so I'm like, okay, I got to figure out where that came from. So I was always told, because my grandfather did the adoption and I had their names, birth dates,
Hmm.
and some medical history,
Hmm.
um, that I was Irish, English, French, and so when I found my natural family, it turns out I'm not French, that I'm Belgian. The last name
Belch.
was Vian, and
Okay.
it's a very, very Belgian name. Yeah.
Hmm.
But when I did the genetic testing, I'm like 16% Iberian, so that's Spain and Portugal.
As in the peninsula?
Yeah, like, yeah, that
Yeah.
whole Iberian Peninsula. And
Wow.
then 16% Baltic, which
Yeah.
is like Latvia and,
Mhm.
northern Russia,
Mhm.
because they've
Mhm.
taken it over. And then uh and then 60% UK. And then the 6%, 6.2% Western Asian. So that's where my son got it from.
Amazing.
But yeah,
Ama
so and then the amazing story, which is another miracle, is just finding my natural family. So my
Mhm.
wife really wanted to find. She looked once, couldn't find anything, and then I don't know. About 5 years later, she asked again, and she found an obituary of my mother that had a picture and it actually had her maiden name, which is rare. But
Mm.
that's how we found, and we started. And they were in Michigan, so she
Yeah.
started looking at property tax and info
Yeah.
and found both my natural dad and my natural mom's family,
Mm.
contacted a sister of mine
Mhm.
that would
Mhm.
have been younger than me. And she
Mhm.
sent me pictures and stuff. And it was, it was great just connecting. And then it turns out on that mom's side, would have had a younger brother and another younger sister.
Mhm.
And I can't reach out to my younger bro, man. He's the man of the house, right? So it's like, I can't. And about a couple years down the road, he reached out to me, and I've since been out for several reunions and weddings and family things. So, and then on my father's side, um, he more amazing story. The connection was through Facebook. So he'd remarried a couple of times, had 4 daughters, no sons. Uh,
Okay.
he he My wife found his stepdaughter on Facebook. We got phone numbers. My wife called, and then it's like I started to speak. I said, "Hey, what do you say to someone that may not know that he's got another kid from some other wife
Right.
or lady?"
Yeah.
And they were engaged. They never got married. Um, so I had this one picture that showed him and her at a wedding. It was different family, and all the names were on the back. And the stepdaughter was just about ready to get hang up. Think this is just all a fraud. And I
Yeah.
said, ask him if he knows this family. And he goes,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I was in their wedding. So I knew it was him. That was his voice.
Ah,
And his
nice.
story was he gave her money to take care of it, and she ran off, and he never saw her again. Never knew what
Mm.
happened. And so he was just amazed that he actually has a son.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh my goodness. And you're right. I mean, what do you say to someone, that you that it's most likely and it's definite that you are their child, after so many years. And this is even before his story of, just saying he gave her the money, take care of it, and never see her again.
right.
I mean, that's tremendous. And
Yeah,
and who knows what the response is going to be, right? I
right.
mean, were you feeling, I don't know, butterflies in your stomach, a
Yeah,
bit
totally.
anxious?
And,
Yeah.
and finally said, because when she was about ready to hang up,
Yeah.
I said, well, and after he admitted that he knew this and he was in this wedding,
Yeah.
I said, well, I don't know how to tell this other than just say, I think I'm your brother-in-law. So, and she's like, oh, okay. And then that's when, we asked questions, and sure enough,
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
connection.
Man, that's amazing. So, yeah. Well, Dr. Thayer, if you don't mind, I'd like if we can just take a step back briefly when it comes to your upbringing. Did you have what you felt was like, a normal upbringing? You celebrated birthdays and Christmases and went on vacations and that sort of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'd say the only thing that wasn't normal, which
Hmm.
probably is normal to a lot of people,
Hmm.
is that there was one night my sister and I and my dad were coming back
Hmm.
from somewhere, and my dad opened the front door, and I was right behind him. I could see around him, and my mom was on the ground with her back to us,
Oh, wow.
laying there.
Yeah.
And then he closed the door and quickly went in and put her in bed and
Yeah.
told us what was going on. She was an alcoholic. She went to
Yeah.
AA. I went to my first AA meeting when I was 11. So
Oh,
I don't
wow.
think that's so normal.
No.
But yeah, no, I think, I mean, I had all the blessings of a great mom. Um, she was Irish,
Yeah.
came over when she was 21,
Okay.
lived in Ireland, England when World War II was going on and
Yeah.
London was being bombed, and
Hmm.
would go back and forth. They'd bring both the English and the Irish over to England to work
Yeah.
on war materials, and
Hmm.
then for about 6 months to a year, then they move them back to Ireland
Hmm.
for safety
Hmm.
and peace of mind. So, yeah, which I wish that she were around so I could ask questions about that now. But uh,
Yeah, that sounds like some very, very fascinating, intriguing history that can be, like unearthed, right?
right, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, if your stepmom had like a sister or a cousin or
right,
something that she was
right,
close to kind of, I don't know, bring those things up to the surface. I mean that was a tremendous time to be alive, and a lot of stuff going on in the world, and again, war, violence, politics on a world scale, not just like
right,
states, right? So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. So, Dr. Thayer, I want to fast forward now to let's say early adulthood. What inspired you to go into medicine and helping people, healing people, and that sort of thing? And this is going to kind of set the stage up for what we really want to talk about with
right,
the challenges, the
right,
emergencies, and the
yeah,
miracles.
yeah. So I always knew that I liked to help people. I was tutoring two blind students in geometry,
Hmm.
which I had to think outside the box about because they can't see a circle, they can't see a square. So
Right.
I have to think about how they learn, which is by touch.
Hmm.
So I would trace things or bring a ball in for a sphere.
Right.
Um, and I had hands. I loved to work with my hands, so I knew I wanted to be. Well, I thought about medicine, but then when I took an anatomy physiology class in
Yeah.
junior year,
Yeah.
it was obvious that I needed to be a surgeon. So I was cocky enough to think, oh, I got to be the real hard cardiovascular surgeon or a neurosurgeon. But some things changed that in medical school to me becoming a good old school general surgeon is what I would call it. So,
uh
um, but and then that just got reinforced through my education, and I think it's what helped motivate me as I went through college. My like I said, my mom died my freshman year, and then um, this my sophomore year, first quarter. It was a quarter system, so it's 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Very quick, very quick. You have a midterm in like 2 weeks, and I had 18 units, organic chemistry, a bunch of things for pre med,
Yeah.
biochemistry, physics, bacteriology lab, biochem lab. It was crazy, and I was coming back from a bacteriology lab, and on my bicycle came around a corner, and
Hmm.
girl pulls out in front of me, and admittedly I was on the wrong side, so it was my fault. I
Wow.
jackknife my wheel so I don't hit her. I go down,
Yeah.
I get up, never hit her. She was fine. And the next thing I remember, I'm sitting on a corner with an ambulance in front of me, and I have a lacerated ear, so they take me to the health center and stitch that up. And I go
Yeah.
back to my dorm room and I start studying for my bacteriology midterm, and I
Yeah.
can't hear very well out of that ear, and there's this fluid coming out of it. And call the health center, and it was some grad student that had less medical knowledge than I did. I
uh
said, I don't know if that's bad. Is it bad? I don't know. Do you? So he made me an appointment for 3:30 the next day, which was after my bacteriology midterm, and an X-ray later, I had air in my head and a basilar skull fracture. So
Oh my
spent 2
goodness.
weeks of that 10-week quarter in a hospital bed
Yeah.
on antibiotics to not get meningitis. So,
Right. Right.
but my floor said I'd never make it through. My floor, my freshman year in the dorms said, always his mom's died. It was towards the end.
Yeah.
He won't come back. I did and finished.
Yeah.
Uh, and then again, my dad had lung cancer
Right.
and was paralyzed one morning, and I had to pick him up, carry
Mm.
him to the hospital.
Mhm.
Can't imagine what the nurses thought as this 21, actually 20 at that point, 20-year-old is carrying his skinned dad from chemotherapy and radiation into the
Wow.
hospital.
Yeah.
But the junior year, I was living in an off-campus dorm. It was 5 of us in one. It was 3 rooms, and in the
Hmm.
hallway, it had this phone jack. And I don't know if the listeners know about long-distance calls and charges, but it used to cost to call
That's
like
right.
from Sacramento to San Jose.
Yeah.
And but I had this phone jack that I plug into, and I could talk to my dad. And we talked for a long time, and I expected the charges to appear in our rooms bill, and they weren't there. So I went to the office and said, "Are you guys getting charged for these calls?" And they had no record of charges from that. So
Yeah.
I never had to pay anything for all these calls the
Wow.
whole year. So it was
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Want to briefly touch on and work on the timing, right? With your reading disorder.
Right.
Okay, I'm assuming you've had this reading disorder since before college.
Yes.
And if you can just kind of break down for us, you know, what this reading disorder was, and what, if any, challenges it gave you from an academic standpoint.
Right. So for second grade, I'd always get in the subjective part of my report card, he needs to read more.
Okay.
Needs to read more.
Hmm.
And the third grade, I walk into a dimly lit class, and there's a projector with a bunch of words, kind of like Star Wars,
Yeah.
in a place long and far ago,
Yeah.
far,
Coming up
far
like
away. Yeah,
this
yeah. So
and
it's
this.
moving,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's a way to count how many words per minute you can read.
Yeah.
And like 4 girls were just nailing it, and then I get up and I'm fumbling back and forth. I'm missing it's too fast. They slow it down. I'm still skipping lines and
Hmm.
reading backwards or whatever. So
Hmm.
I just knew I was a slow reader. I would make an excuse. Well, I'm a math guy, so any word problem has like 3 parts of it you got to know to answer the equation you have to make. And so it wasn't until I was 55. So it was, my youngest son was about 8, about 7,
Hmm.
and he was having difficulty in school.
Hmm.
And we had him tested, and then the test identified him as dyslexic. And I'm like,
Oh, really?
and all the symptoms were the
Yeah.
same ones that I have.
Yeah.
And I can see how, that would be a disability, but somehow I just fought through it. I mean, I take a million tests even now. Every year I have to take continuing medical education tests.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the first thing I do is look at how much time and how many questions and how many seconds per question I have. And
Right.
I worry more about that than I do the exam. So it's totally distracting, but
Yeah.
I've obviously gotten through it. So, but I just didn't know what it was. I just knew I was a slow reader.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Um, so does that kind of indicate that, was there a hereditary element to
Yeah, I
this,
think
or?
so. Yeah.
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 Okay.
I mean, I'm ADD, so all my kids are ADD. My wife's ADD. I mean, my fifth grade teacher tied me to a chair. Uh,
Hmm.
so
Tied you to a
tied
chair.
me to a chair. Yeah. My sixth
Oh,
grade teacher, Mr. Hill, was a Green Beret.
yeah.
I was at the back of the class. That way I'm not as distracting.
Hmm.
And I was a class clown. And I
Hmm.
learned that, that's what happens if you have something that makes you feel inferior, like
Yeah.
you can't read very well and you have to
Yeah.
read out loud to the class,
Hmm.
you're going to find another way to boost your ego. So a lot of guys will become class clowns to make them feel themselves
Right.
feel better.
Right.
So that's what I did. And
Hmm.
I also knew that Mr. Hill had this long pointer. So it's like solid wood with a black rubber tip.
Yes.
The year before, a guy named Benson had the record of, I don't know, 110 bops. And so I think I was cracking the class up, and he moved me right in front of the desk that he sat at, and he could reach me with the bopper anytime he wanted to. And I ended up smashing the record,
Did
and
you
the
really?
bopper got named the Thayer Thumper. So
The Thayer Thumper. What a name.
yeah,
It had
yeah,
your name on it, man. So
yeah,
yeah, so that's a clear indicator that you smashed the record, no
yeah,
doubt.
yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
gosh,
He was a
man.
great teacher, one of my best.
Oh,
Chauncey Hill.
yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of times it's those types of teachers, that has the biggest impact on your learning, and not just the academia stuff, right? But just how to character,
yeah,
and how to interact with people, and how to set expectations and how to meet expectations. Those are some very impactful teachers, without a doubt. So it sounds like, Dr. Thayer, um, with ADD and with the reading disorder, you still found a way to persevere and manage throughout these things. Now, with that said, if it goes undiagnosed, okay, and you're in your formative years, you're in your teenage years, and you're in your college years, then I guess you don't know you have this condition.
right, right.
Yeah. So you don't know that you're managing around something. But did you feel like you had to study harder, read more, work harder to be at the level of your peers?
Yeah, or what I ended up doing is I just
Hmm.
learned how I learn best, which is
Yeah.
hearing it. So,
Yeah.
like in undergrad or med school, I would sit at the back of the class,
Hmm.
but I had to be there for every lecture
Hmm.
because I could literally understand something, memorize it, and then take a note that was only maybe 3 or 4 words that would prompt that memory in my head. So I think the way I worked around it was just using, Audible,
Right.
um, in order to put it in my brain, and that's what they think that dyslexics, normally the brain uses the cortex to read and
Yeah.
can maybe 250 characters a minute,
Hmm.
but we're using more of our gray matter, so we can process speed at a much higher rate, but it's not as focused. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah. That's kind of like I don't know. I'm kind of equating it to speed reading.
right,
I'm not sure, but the production is faster, but not as focused.
right, right,
Okay,
exactly.
I got you. I got you. So that brings us, Dr. Thayer, um, to your book, okay, and the work that you do as a trauma surgeon. So, uh, um, would you say that your book's a culmination of what you captured and chronicled in your journey, okay, and upbringing, but also maybe a combination of just the things you've experienced in your profession as a trauma surgeon, with some seemingly insurmountable problems and just traumas that in which you find miracles and see and witness
Right,
miracles. Can you
absolutely.
can you break down that for us with the inspiration for your book?
Yeah, so my grandmother was the only adult that lived through my adulthood,
Okay.
and so she was there for high school graduation, undergrad,
Hmm.
medical school,
Hmm.
my residency program,
Hmm.
seeing me open my own practice, um, and then she passed away 2 years ago. But I
Hmm.
would take her to like 6 to 8 Sacramento Kings basketball games a year, and she'd just say, "You
Wow.
need to publish this because it's going to inspire people, and they
Hmm.
can see what they can do in their life, motivate, give
Right.
people hope."
Yes. Yes.
Let them like, hey, I'm on an artificial pedestal as an MD, so,
Hmm.
and especially as a surgeon or a trauma surgeon, or
Hmm.
but I'm the same as everybody else. Look what I've gone through. It's
Yeah.
and you can do it too. So,
I
but
got
but then and it's like I said, I was raised Catholic, so I knew Jesus at an early age,
you. Yes.
but I wasn't a follower. I was a believer.
Hmm.
It was more of a rebel in high school and
Hmm.
college, and uh, and then it wasn't probably until my oldest daughter was playing volleyball and was on a club team,
Yeah.
and they started going to a church. They had like their own kind of Bible study, and we went. And then that's when I just, and my wife too, we both wanted to find more Christianity in our lives,
Right.
and we started going on medical mission trips through this
Hmm.
church.
Hmm.
And once you start seeing those miracles, you kind of look back, and
Yeah.
that's where you can. Anytime you use the word, you know, um, coincidence, luck, lucky,
Yeah.
impossible, rare, think about those, and they're going on now. So there's miracles in your own life. You just got to look for them.
That's right.
And or a car that you just a microsecond away that could have just clobbered you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you could unequivocally see these miracles on these mission trips. There was a
Hmm.
trip where I'd operated on a pediatric patient, and there was we needed some pediatric Tylenol,
Yeah.
elixir, and we have these big racks of medications in the operating room.
Yeah.
And I mean, 4 people looked, and no one could find anything. I looked, I couldn't find it either.
Right.
And then my wife goes back about 15 minutes after everybody was done, and just boom, there it is.
Wow.
There's a time when uh, we'll get there, and it's usually a family practice, pediatrics. Uh, Sometimes PAs will come,
Yep.
and then me for surgery. And I'll see 80 to 100 patients in a half a day and start operating that first day.
Whew.
But someone sets up that whole clinic. And this one year it was in this courtyard and school courtyard.
Yeah.
And I told my buddy, look, can you just set up an area that I can examine people that's private? So literally that black plastic that you put down for landscaping and not letting weeds grow
Oh,
through,
yeah. Yeah.
those are my walls. And
Wow.
one wall was a brick part of the building with a windowsill that was, uh, a large windowsill.
Yeah.
And I'm I walk into the thing and had a three-legged table,
Mm.
and I can hear the people lining up outside, and my blood pressure's going up. I'm getting because
Yeah.
it's I got to get through all these people and
Right.
get my list for the operating room and then get going.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, I forgot to tell my buddy that I need these Ziploc bags that
Mm.
have the sun rising, sun midday, and then sun setting. It
Yeah.
tells you when to take medication internationally,
Hmm.
morning, noon, or night."
Right.
And I forgot to tell him I need a bunch of those. And literally, as I'm like not panicked but anxious, I look over at that windowsill, and there's a roll of them. I never told anybody I needed those.
Really?
There's a roll.
So there was just a mental note that you made prior to that that you
They
needed them.
Yeah, and they just appeared out of nowhere.
That's amazing.
So, but I mean, there's a trip to Tello, which is more on the Atlantic side,
Hmm.
because all the other ones are in Copan,
Okay.
which is about a 4.5 hour bus ride out to it. It's close to Guatemala,
Guatemala. Gotcha.
um, and you can't explain the light in this closet. I'm
Yeah.
sitting on the ground. It's on the cover. The picture's
Hmm.
a cartoonized version of that picture's on the cover. The label is over where the light is.
Okay.
Um, but there's a 4 drawer, cream colored, so it's light,
Yeah.
metal filing cabinet to my left, and I'm sitting in the shade. The only window's on my left across from me, and I'm sitting in the shade. And my buddy, who's the one that set up the exam area, different
Yeah.
trip here,
Yeah.
uh, took a picture of me in black and white, and which is the one that's again on the cover.
Yeah.
But there's a light coming off the side of that filing cabinet,
Yeah.
and you can't explain it. There's like, and then my face is lit up, and I'm like, I look at the picture. I go, "Do you see this?" Because he didn't see it, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh my god!" Then we both look at the filing cabinet, like, Where did that come from?"
Yeah.
So, and then more importantly, like the first case that I did there was a laparoscopic gallbladder surgery, and that
Right.
case should have never happened because the large, like acetylene tank of CO2 was
Yeah.
empty, was empty. And the
Wow.
story's in the book. So, but
Okay.
it's from the get-go.
Yeah.
They have a local surgeon. He looks like a kid. I
Hmm.
think they do like 2 years of high school,
Hmm.
1 year of college, and then their residency is 3 years. So it's much more. It's 14 years for me after high school.
I see.
Um, so he shows us how they set up and what they do, and the the camera is a normal camera.
Yeah.
but the actual hookup's not sterile, so you slide the sterile sock over it. The
Right.
TV, which in America is like a 36-inch HD color,
Right.
is about 12 inches. It is
Hmm.
color.
Hmm.
Uh, the cautery is the same as what I used,
Okay.
except the hookup was different. The suction was with a shop vac that you hook to the
Oh,
same
wow.
kind of system I use in America.
Okay.
And and then you have to inflate the belly through a special needle, and it's got to get to 15 milliliters of mercury. And I see it stops at 12, and I can see on the indicator of the machine that it does the inflating that
Yeah.
it's out of gas. So then I look over at the tank, and its gauge is at 0. And
Mm.
I just looked down and prayed, and I knew I had a second option. I could do it the old-fashioned way because I was trained that way too, with a big incision and
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
it out through the incision.
Yeah.
And then it was 15, and it never went. I had to suction during the case, so that's going to
Yeah.
suck CO2. It's got a refill,
Hmm.
and it never did not have enough CO2 in the belly. And the scrub nurse that was Honduran walked over to the tank at the end and said, You shouldn't have been able to do this. There's no gas in here." And then I wanted to
Incredible.
see how long I took. So I looked behind me at the clock,
Hmm.
and it was stopped at 7 after 7 on the 7th day of April.
Wow. 7 after 7 on the
Yeah,
seventh day.
God's number.
God's number. Dr. Thayer, that is incredible.
Yeah,
You should not have been able to do that
no,
surgery.
yeah, no.
I mean, it sounds like the tank was bone dry
It was bone dry from the start. Yeah, it had enough
from
to
the
just
start.
get to 12 millimeters of mercury, and that was it. But then, power of prayer, it
Power
filled
of
to
prayer,
15 and stayed that way.
absolutely. And the
And it
power
was
of
an hour and a
faith,
half case. It's an
an
hour and a
hour and
half
a
surgery.
half, hour and a half.
Yeah,
Wow. The power of prayer and the power of faith in continuing, moving on, persevering,
right,
knowing that it's out,
right,
but through the glory and grace of God,
right,
it's happening. That is
right.
absolutely incredible. And so, Dr. Thayer, in these examples that you have in the book and that you put in the book, okay, I mean, real, true to life, first hand witnessed events.
Yes. And
Um,
some photoed.
and
Like
some
the
photos,
same
even
trip
more
that
so.
has the light coming off of the cabinet has
Yeah.
another picture with a different camera
Hmm.
in the operating room where all there is this paper drape with a hole in it, and what's coming through the hole is just someone's skin on their abdomen. And
Mm.
there's a aura, there's a dome over the
Yeah.
skin that involves my hands.
Yeah.
Can't
Amazing.
explain it. Yeah,
No, no. And that light, the picture with the light, I mean,
yeah.
was there any natural light coming in from anywhere?
Just across to my left, but if you look
Yeah.
at the picture closely, I'm in the shade because the cabinet was out far enough that I could tuck myself in,
Hmm.
but the left half of my face is all lit up.
Is that part of what's on the cover?
Yes, but that was we had someone that cartoonized it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I saw
but
it
that
animated.
picture's black and white. It's
And-
it's in the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd love to hear from you and your insight for the benefit of the listeners. If you can wrap up in one sentence with the examples of the miracles that you have seen in the midst of tragedy, in the midst of chaos, in the midst of trauma, if you can sum up what you share in the book of your journey, your experiences into one primary sentence that delivers the key message you want your readers to take from this book, what would that sentence be?
Uh, I want everybody to know that there's hope.
That
That
there's hope.
that unequivocally, the last chapter in the book. If you don't read it, any part of the book, read the last chapter. It's the title,
Okay.
Ralph.
Okay.
Um,
Ralph.
he was an atheist,
Hmm.
Vietnam vet.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, had some horrible Parkinson's disease that his speech became uninterpretable.
Yeah. Yeah.
He couldn't walk. He was then in a chair, and then he
Hmm.
was in bed, and so it deteriorates.
Wow.
But again, the power of prayer. So I'm not going
Yes.
to give away the book. I'll tease you about
No.
it, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's an unequivocal story
Hmm.
uh, that there's hope. So and especially today, society is just so passionate in
Yeah.
each direction. And
Yes.
part of that, I think, is I've thought about it. Part of that's probably being sequestered with COVID and wanting to get your voice and gather again with people. But it's also, I think, social media.
Yeah.
Early on with Facebook, and we got this artificial power. Like you could pretty much say whatever you wanted on
Yeah.
social media, and I think I even had a cousin that said something once, and I'm
Hmm.
like, dude, if you were sitting across from me, I think I'd punch you in the face.
Yeah.
So, so I think, people want to be heard
Yeah.
and they're passionate about what they want to hear about or
Yeah.
talk about. But yeah, but there's hope.
There's
I think
hope.
social media, some of them run very definitely off of fear,
Yeah. For
and
sure.
that fear is paralyzing for some people. So,
Yeah.
you know, um, wear the helmet of salvation, and this, if you have the helmet of salvation, then you have peace in your brain, and you can wear the shoes of peace and strut that around.
Yes. Wearing the shoes
Armor
of
of
peace
God, yeah,
and the armor of God. That's
yeah,
exactly right. Because you've heard of spiritual warfare, right?
right,
Yeah, and it seems like when everything is going our way, that's when the devil really wants to turn up the heat, and throw things in your way to discourage you, right? To
correct,
make you doubt
correct.
yourself and that sort of thing. And so that brings me to another question because you've come across so much adversity, so many struggles, Dr. Thayer. um, what kept you on the course? I mean, was it a mantra? Was it just the strength of your faith? Was it your upbringing and how you were raised to respond to adversities? I mean, what was the thing that kept you on on the course?
I'd say two things. I would say when I was young, probably
Hmm.
stubbornness
Okay.
and not wanting to fail. I had a goal when I
Hmm.
was a junior in high school.
Hmm.
I knew it was a calling.
Yeah.
So God, I just knew that this is my purpose in life,
Yes.
uh, and I never gave up.
Hmm.
So I guess God was in that as well. But
Yeah.
now as I'm older, you're absolutely right. You do something like I moved from California to Georgia
Yeah.
with our two youngest boys and my wife and
Hmm.
our dog, and when you do something big for God, you become a blip on the radar screen, and He's going to
Yes.
attack. And so,
Hmm.
He'll try and get between you and your wife. He'll try and get between you and your kids.
That's right. That's right.
He'll try and make you drink more. He'll try and make you do a lot of
Yes.
things.
Yes.
Take away your job, have you
Yes.
accused of stuff.
Yes.
And if you're ready for that, because it was interesting, my boys are both Eagles. I've got 5 kids,
Okay.
um, 32 now to 15. Um,
Gotcha.
that they will. We were at a Boy Scout camp in California, and there was another assistant scoutmaster there who was a fire captain. And I was telling him, "Hey, look, when you do these things, because he was going to move to Maine after he
Yeah.
retired
Yeah.
next year or two, and I go, Satan's going to come looking for you. So
Mhm.
if you're having a rough time with your wife, this is not about you guys. It's about." And then I saw him probably a year later. Was going to a Starbucks to get a coffee. Came out, and there they were sitting. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" He goes, "I thank you so much for telling me to be prepared for the spiritual battle, because if I didn't think of that,
Yeah.
this would have been a mess. But knowing that, we've totally handled it right, and they're doing fine."
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Thayer, because that to me again, proof positive, right? That is proof positive that even the smallest encounters or the smallest interaction, or it may be in passing, a couple words of advice, or maybe just giving someone a heads up,
Right, right,
and you think nothing of it, you give them the heads up. They may say, okay, yeah, sure, and then you go your way, they go their way. you never know down the line the impact that that could have between, something that is flourishing and something that dissolves and withers away. And had you not said that,
Right.
and in a lot of cases we don't know, but you were fortunate enough to catch up just by happenstance, I guess, while
Yep.
getting a coffee,
Yep.
to
Just a
hear,
coincidence. Yeah.
yeah, how that turned around. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's absolutely, um, it's incredible. It's a phenomenon, and
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, um, I can tell by your energy, the heart that you have for service, the heart that you have for people, and it goes beyond the great work you do as a trauma surgeon,
Right.
and giving people hope and sharing stories of hope, sharing stories that miracles are real, miracles do exist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to first off, I think, and you tell me, and please the listeners as well, Dr. Thayer, is one of the things that can lead you in the direction of accepting and acknowledging that miracles exist and are real. Do you have to have the frame of mind and the mindset first to recognize that, hey, there are such things as miracles?
I think, I've been known to say if you don't look, you can't see, and if you
Yeah.
don't listen, you can't hear, right? So,
Hmm.
so if you're not doing those things, then they're there. You
Yeah.
just don't hear or see them. So, but when you have the mindset to go, hey, well, let me check this out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you pray, whether
Hmm.
you're Christian or whatever,
Hmm.
try this experiment. Write them down, put them in a
Okay.
box, or
Okay.
journal them. But a box seems more like a time capsule.
Yeah.
And then 6 months, a year down the road, pull them out, see how they were answered.
Hmm.
You're going to find they were all answered, not necessarily the way you thought they were going to be,
Right.
but they've been answered. So it's crazy when that happens.
Yeah, no, it truly is. And that's a great experiment for someone who may have a little doubt, but at least an open mind, an open enough mind to explore that, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So, Dr. Thayer, I can go on asking you questions and talking about mindset, responding to challenges and so forth, and miracles. But I'd like to know if you can share with the listeners, how can they follow you, learn more about your great work, and pick up a copy of your book?
I like to make things simple. So I am on all the social medias,
Hmm.
but the simplest is my website. It's Craig Thayer. So CraigThayer.net. So CraigThayer.net. It's
Okay.
got the link to Amazon. You can just go to Amazon and put my name in there or put saved
Okay.
and my name. It's going to pull up the book. Uh, I am moments away from actually having the Audible done. So
That's
there'll be
wonderful.
an announcement on that website. So here's another view of my dyslexia. So I put a survey out there on Facebook. Should I do an Audible? 100% said yes.
Yeah.
And then I said, should I be the one that does it? And one of my friends from high school said no. All the others said yes. So I go, I'm dyslexic. This is going to be horrible because
Yeah.
it's just hard to read. And now so it's like my analogy was if I had polio and I had a really shrunken right leg,
Yeah.
as long as I'm just walking around living a life, it's not a distraction or disability. But
Right.
if you ask me to run, okay,
Yeah.
that's different. So here, that's what I'm doing. You've asked me to run
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
my reading. So, but I just did the six redo clips that needed to get done. So I think it's going to come to me next week for my final listening, and then it'll go on all the audibles and all the audible things that can be loaded to. So, and I'll put
Well,
an announcement up on the website.
oh, that's wonderful, and definitely congratulations are in order for your book and for the soon to be released Audible version of the book. I'm sure as of the release of this episode, that Audible version will be available. So therefore, CraigThayer.net. That will be in the episode show notes for the listeners to click and order a copy of the book and learn more about Dr. Thayer's work as they're listening to this beautiful, wonderful, insightful conversation. Dr. Thayer, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Let's please keep in touch, and
Yes, yes,
thank you again for just reemphasizing two main keys that I got out of this conversation. Number one, miracles are real and they do exist. And number two, there's hope.
right,
There is
correct.
hope.
Hey, and I'm always there for you, Aubrey. This is your podcasts are awesome. So not just this one, but all the other ones you do too. So
Well, I appreciate
keep up
that.
your great work.
Oh, thank you so much. So thoughtful of you, Dr. Thayer. I appreciate that truly within my heart of hearts, and also appreciate you coming on the show as well.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And hey, look, if you have a loved one, a neighbor, a friend, a colleague, a coworker who just doesn't seem to be themselves, maybe they're going through some dark days of despair, not quite sure where to turn or who to turn to, I humbly ask that you please share this show with them because on the road to rediscovery, we want our listeners to know two things. Number one, you're not alone. And number two, as we discussed in this conversation, and as Dr. Thayer has emphasized and driven home, there's always hope. The road to rediscovery, it's a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life, and it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Road to Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have.